Learn local organisations, or Learn Locals, located in rural and regional communities, provide a vital service in supporting the most vulnerable learners in their communities.
They might have a slight intellectual disability, those adults who've got limited reading, writing skills, the VCAL program.
Yet many of these organisations are becoming economically unviable.
We can see the sector in decline.
There is a tension between having an organisation that's commercially viable and one that sees its role as part of a wider community engagement model.
It has been a curiosity to me that it's lost its champions, and it had some very, very strong community, the people that would normally have stood up and said no, we can't, and that's not happening. And that's a real sign that it's lost its viability alongside its financial viability.
The Barwon Southwest Adult Community and Further Education, or ACFE, Regional Council has researched the recent closures or mergers of a number of Learn Locals and examined the issues regarding the complexities and costs of service delivery in rural locations.
A lot of people seem to think because we're not-for-profit that we make a loss.
Organisations have a life of their own, or they have almost a mind and a body, which is the collective of all their staff and their members and their stakeholders and so on.
The researchers found that one of the key issues for smaller Learn Locals is being able to attract suitable board members.
I've got an initial core together, and then we start talking and thinking, well, what are we lacking here?
And this issue is made even more difficult in small communities. Competent governance is critical to ensure organisational viability.
This sort of sector, you really have to have someone who's got that sort of social capital idea and ideals.
Rapid changes in funding arrangements is another key difficulty identified by Barwon Southwest Learn Locals.
The restructuring of some of the government services and privatisation of services has supported some organisations to look over the fence and think, oh, that looks pretty good, and to go over there.
The lack of predictability in finances for small community organisations that operate on knife-edge margins makes their position precarious, and this has an ongoing deleterious effect on management and staff.
In many respects, that meant losing their vision and their core business and their values. So I'm thinking that as the funding was going down, pastures looked greener, and what has been lost is that community ownership.
Competition from private registered training organisations, or RTOs, and the cost of compliance for accredited training are also significant issues for smaller Learn Locals, taking up disproportionate amounts of money and time.
You don't want the multinationals coming in and taking over.
Part-time staff are being pulled in too many directions, and while they are willing, they don't have the time to participate in the capacity-building networking and partnerships that would make them stronger organisations. The executive officers and board members of Learn Locals recognise that professional development in leadership and governance are required to make sure their organisations are strong and viable community businesses. Cost and distance are barriers to participation, but online delivery and mentoring are two strategies that could be better used to help Learn Locals build their business base.
Talked to a number of people who have gone down that path. We had one person working on it for 12 months who was being frustrated with it. So one of my current staff who had a bit of capacity in working full time, she's now working on that in terms of looking at Articulate and actually liaising with Errol Muir at the board, as Errol's found Articulate quite easy. So they're linking in and sending little bits and pieces to each other to just try and get the message across.
Learn Locals are very good at supporting the most vulnerable people, especially those in more remote communities.
The English course, yes, only English course. Teach us different from when we talk, and the Australian got many slang. Yes, I think it's different from the American or English. Yes, Yes, everything different. Yes, much different for me. Yes. Sometimes when I talk on the phone, people don't understand much. Yes, because my accent not good enough. Yes, I think.
Learners who participate in Learn Local classes are often challenging, coming from disadvantaged and disengaged backgrounds.
I was having troubles at my old school with some of the teachers that I had, and they didn't really understand. We can get a bit loud in this class, but we are pretty quiet. It can be like you can hear a pin drop in some of the classes, which is good because it does allow you the time to concentrate and you're not distracted by like 30 other kids, you know, you've only got 5 or so next to you.
No allowance in the funding structure is made for the Learn Local to provide the support that's needed by people from these backgrounds to successfully engage in education.
It's more relaxed, like no uniforms, assemblies, exams, tests. There's none of that, but you still learn.
Pre-accredited training is very flexible and can be adapted to suit individual learners. Learn Locals are often well placed to develop the partnerships required to provide pathways into further training that leads to employment.
We've got a population where, across a broad spectrum, probably around 50% have Year 12 or equivalent. So in terms of a market, we've got a market of people that would benefit from some form of adult learning.
Learn Locals play a vital role in communities and more isolated communities in particular, delivering and maintaining the wider benefits of learning, such as health, employment and social relationships. These services will be lost to a community for a long time if a Learn Local closes. The small, rural Learn Locals in the Barwon Southwest ACFE region are not operating on a level playing field. They do not have the infrastructure or training resources of private RTOs, TAFE or industry, yet they play a vital role in reaching and supporting vulnerable learners and provide a critical pathway to engagement in the community, to accredited training and future employment.
If organisations like Learn Locals are going to survive and thrive into the future, then they need to be basing their planning on a sound evidence base, and that requires them to understand their own local labour market, but also to understand the context within which their labour market's located. So what's the broader labour market within the state or the country or at global level that can impact on industry growth in their area. And in order to do that, they really need to take that strategic foresight approach of looking into the future and thinking about what work might be like and what the opportunities might be like for their clients in the future. And the data gives them the base from which to do that.
As such, it's vital that these organisations are more appropriately resourced and supported to ensure that rural communities do not lose this valuable service.
If I hadn't come here, I honestly don't think I'd be doing much at all. I probably would be just sitting on my bum at home.